Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our worship on Sunday, the 17th of January. This week's video may be a little shorter than usual, but we hope you still enjoy it and find it helpful. We're also trying out a new service which is live on Zoom, so do try and find out some more details of that, and hopefully those recordings will also be available on YouTube and Facebook afterwards. But here's Judith with this morning's reading.
Good morning. Today, the second Sunday in Epiphany, we have the Gospel reading from John's Gospel, chapter 1, beginning to read at verse 43. The first disciples have just joined Jesus. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nazareth said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "When did you come to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." I think we're probably all in need of some good news, aren't we? There's so much that's worrying or depressing or painful to hear or see. So I've been very appreciative of the change in some broadcasts recently, hearing about how people have complied with the lockdown restrictions, for instance, and the sort of things that people have taken up, new hobbies, learning new skills to help them cope with lockdown. And the many lovely broadcasts of the countryside and the creatures in them. All these things are positive and good news. Now the background to our reading this morning is similar in the sense that people were longing for God's good news to come to them. They had for centuries God speaking to them through the prophets, but that had all stopped some 400 years ago. So there was this great silence of God speaking to them. And now they were coping with the Roman occupation, extra taxes, there was corruption, obvious inequalities, and the religious leaders were making excessive demands on ordinary people. So that's the background for the episode in this morning's reading. And we heard about the early days of Jesus' public ministry. He is on the lookout for followers. And in a very brief statement, we hear that Philip has become a new follower of Jesus. We don't know the details of what they talked about or anything that happened, but Philip was now enthusiastically convinced that Jesus was the fulfillment of the promises in the Old Testament, that he was the Messiah. And so, full of enthusiasm, he goes off to find his friend Nathanael. Now, Nathanael is not eager to believe this good news. He has a slightly mocking, sceptical response. disparaging Nazareth and anything that might be associated with Nazareth. And as a side issue, we learn from this that looking down on particular geographical areas is not a new thing. I get the feeling that Nathaniel wouldn't easily latch onto everything in social media, were he to have it. So Nathaniel does not share Philip's excitement, but he is willing to take up Philip's invitation. Philip says, "Come and see." He doesn't try to persuade him or argue with him. And Nathaniel goes along. But whatever tests he might have wanted to put Jesus to, whatever questions he might have wanted to ask him, he doesn't get the chance. He hears, before he's really met Jesus, he hears him speak some very affirming words, that Nathaniel is an honest man, that he sincerely and honestly wants to please God. And Nathaniel is absolutely amazed. How on earth did Jesus know these things about him when they have never met? Jesus is showing an extraordinary and unusual insight here. He knew what Nathaniel was doing before Philip found him, and he knew what kind of person Nathaniel was. Now, being deeply understood by someone is a very powerful thing. It's probably not very common because most of us are not very good listeners. We're taken up with our own things rather than wanting to understand someone else. But as far as Nathaniel is concerned, it obviously touches him very deeply. And he realizes that Jesus is the answer to his hopes for his nation. And this is shown by the titles that he gives Jesus. Rabbi, which means teacher, Son of God, King of Israel. Jesus' response, to me, seems a little bit amused that this sceptical man has suddenly turned from doubt to belief. And he tells him that basically this isn't anything much, you are going to see much greater things than this. And then Jesus starts talking to more people, not just Nathaniel. And we know that because the word used for you in the final part of the reading is not you, one person, but you, many people. And so he is saying to us, to more people, not just news for Nathaniel, that they will see a vision of a ladder between heaven and earth and angels coming down and going up on it. And that picture that he offers them, that vision, would remind his hearers of Jacob's ladder. Jacob, one of the great ancestors of the people of Israel. He had a vision of a ladder with angels going up and coming down. And he realized, seeing that God was present with him and he hadn't realized. So here Jesus is pointing to a familiar picture, and that his followers would realize eventually that Jesus is the presence of God with them. He brings heaven and earth together. So what does this episode, what is it saying to us? Well, if you are looking for hope in these very difficult times, I invite you to look to Jesus Christ. Be honest about your own questions, your own doubts, your own fears. And please don't be afraid that you might not be good enough. Jesus knows you already, and he welcomes sincere people with mercy. Now, if you're a long-time believer, then, like those early followers, be open to seeing more in Jesus Christ. We can have ideas that may not have changed since we were children. We may have been taught certain things and not really moved on, not deepened those understandings and ideas. We can all grow in our faith. And if you're feeling swamped by your situation or by the news which causes you concern, take a step towards trusting Jesus' promise that he is with you, whether you realise it or not. Just put a hand out to him, look to him, say a short prayer. Help is enough. Whatever expresses your wish to connect with him. You could even say, "If you are here, Lord, help me to believe." I'm going to finish with a prayer written by Brother Roger of the community of Taizé. O Christ, tirelessly you seek out those who are looking for you and who think that you are far away. Teach us at every moment to place our spirits into your hands. While we are still looking for you, already you have found us. However poor our prayer, you hear us more than we can imagine or believe. May that prayer come true in all of our lives. Amen.